Being 5:15, I'd like to call the finance personnel meeting to order. Everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
Make a motion to approve February 7th meeting minutes.
Second.
The agenda.
Oh, the agenda, I'm sorry, make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion been made by Tim, seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Look for approval for the February 7th meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the February 7th meeting minutes.
Second. Motion made by Tim, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, tax collection correction. Adam?
Yep, so that's me. So for those of you that don't know, my name is Adam. I'm the city assessor. Usually when I come here, it's not positive news, so I do have an error to inform you guys of. A few years ago, I think it was 2018, we had a correction where a house was missed, meaning it was built as of January 1st, but was not assessed. So this is kind of a similar situation to that, except the reverse of it. So I did include some things in your packet, just kind of going over high level of these situations. There is a particular statute, 7043, that allows for corrections for certain situations to be applied in the next year when these particular situations happen. What they describe them as is as a palpable errors, and one of those palpable errors that is written into statutes is something that we can correct, is assessing property that did not exist as of January 1st. So these particular parcels were new construction. How we assess new construction is how the property exists as of January 1st of the year. So if the home isn't done, we do partial assessments where we assign percentage points to each phase of construction for how long they are as of January 1st. What happened with these 4, and it's all from the same builder, is they were assessed at 100% complete when really they were in various stages of construction, or in one parcel's case, the home was never built. So I guess the first question you'd be asking is, how does this come to be? Usually in a normal year, around January 1st, I'm doing my partial inspections. So I've already gone through the list of building permits for the year, identified new homes, new commercial buildings, new detaches, garages, and I perform exterior inspections on them prior to the interior postcard requests go out. That occurs in January. Also at the end of the year, I do a building permit audit. So I go through all the building permits I was given from the city, plus some documents that the building inspector gets me to ensure that every building permit was addressed. And I think what happened was my notes in January during the partials were poor. So when I did the audit in May, I came across 4 building permits that felt weren't addressed, that needed to be addressed, and I lined up the wrong partial sheets to those 4 particular parcels. They were all Romanesco's homes. Notices did go out ahead of border review last spring, informing Romanesco what the assessment would be. There was no objection to border review in June. So we did progress all the way to tax bills being created before the property owner complained. But even though this is past border review, because it's a palpable error described in the statutes and allowable correction based on statute 7043, we can make the corrections to the tax bill to correctly assess what was there as of January 1st, 2023. So it was a taxpayer initiated review. This came about by getting a call from the new owners. Two of them had actually sold to new owners, and then two of them are still in Romanesco's name. How we came about making the correction, I worked with Dave, the building inspector. He has detailed notes on when occupancy was granted, and then he also has detailed notes on when insulation inspection occurred, when the plumbing inspection occurred. So based on that, in combination with the builder's schedule that I was able to get from the property owner, I came up with a correct percentage and then applied that to them. So moving on, originally what was with these four parcels, what was supposed to be collected in tax is $23,076. What actually is being collected is $7,083. So there's a difference of $15,993 that was unlawful assessment and now is an uncollectible tax amount. So if you're thinking about how the tax collection process works, the county issues the bill, they do the collection, and then they also disperse it to the various jurisdictions. So they're not going to recreate, once the tax bill's initiated, they don't recreate that. So what has to happen then is when there's a correction to the tax amount, the property owner pays the correct amount, but then the municipality has to pay the difference to the county. So then it is distributed to the various jurisdictions. After the fact, then the municipality can get DOR approval to charge back the school, county, and any other jurisdiction, the portion that we paid on their behalf. So initially, there's going to be money going out from the city to close out these tax bills in the amount of just under $16,000. But of that $16,000, the local portion, which is uncollectible, is $7,315. So again, initially to close out these bills, if we do it this spring with the county, there would be that $16,000 going out from the municipality, but then we have the ability to bill back the other jurisdictions once we get DOR approval to do so. So the chargeback requests are due by October 1st, but really that's the start of the review. We can turn it in now. DOR reviews 2024 chargeback requests between October 1st and the end of the year. And then usually they give approval for the billing back or the chargeback early 2025. So the city could be paying to close out the bills now, but wouldn't be able to bill school or county for their portions until January or February of 2025. So again, this is an error that the statutes do allow us to correct. It was based off of assessing properties at 100% complete on January 1st when they were not. 4 particular properties were involved, all in New London Acres. Going forward, I'm sure you're aware, but there's a new building inspector program that he's getting up to speed on, BS&A. Through that program, he's collecting much more information than what has been in electronic form in the past. Better integrating with the new software in the building inspection department is probably the number one thing that's going to prevent this from happening in the future. For instance, if I were to come to the building permit audit this spring and came across 4 building permits that I felt needed to still be addressed, to confirm that, I can now log into New London, look up the building permit and see where Dave is at. If I would have had that last year, I would have known right away that the occupancy wasn't granted up the first of the year and the assessment never would have went out. So I have access now to, by the minute building inspection records. And then the other part of this is it's just a reminder to take better notes in the field and make sure your I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Specifically, I know it's not the best excuse in the world, but part of the issue was I was filling out my partial construction worksheets, but not putting the address or parcel number on the top of it, just filling it out and then relying on photos and the order of how I was keeping things in the car to get that to the correct parcel. So something as simple as filling out the sheet as it's intended also would prevent this from happening. So it happened, like I said, at the time, 4 properties that were all under one builder, one owner. By the time the tax bills went out, it went also to property owners that bought those homes in the fall. So again, the numbers though, 16,000 total uncollectible, including school, county, local portion. Of that 16,000, the local portion represents 7,300 that will be uncollectible. So does anybody have any questions about that? Kind of bounced all around, so. And at this point, the tax bill numbers have been corrected and communicated to the property owners. I believe Nicole has collected on the correct amount on each of them. So.
All right, thank you, Adam. Thank you for coming. We consider compensation scale adjustment. Chad?
All right, so in your packet, there was a document included that stated compensation wage schedule. Tim Roberts came up to me and was asking a couple questions, which made me realize that I need to put a little bit more definition on what this actually is. So on your table, you'll see the 2023 that was adopted schedule. That was the entire wage schedule we went through when we were talking about updating our compensation plan. The second page is the same document that you have in your packet, except in the top, I specifically noted that the intent of this discussion is to talk about the wage schedule for new hires or promotions. So this schedule that we're going to talk about doesn't really affect any existing employees. It's only updating the schedule for new employees. What we did when we created this, we talked about the benefit of, in the past, the wage schedule was stagnant and only reviewed every 5 years. So the 2023 schedule, if we were on the past practice, we wouldn't touch that for 5 years. In year 4, we would have wages that are 4 or 5 years old and probably behind market, which would be difficult to keep up to market. So when we talked about updating our wage schedule, our step and grade schedule, we talked about a desire to try to keep that a little bit more current, so we aren't trying just to do a massive upgrade every 5 years. To give you a little bit more insight of what we're talking about, up on the screen, and keep that 2024 packet, or 2023 package in front of you. The difference between the 2023 and the 2024 numbers is 1.5% right now. On the screen, you will see I took grade 10 and an example of the street operators. So if you look at grade 10, you'll see that the street operators, if we had a new operator come in with 1 or 2 years of experience, grade 10, step 1, we would offer that person $46,844. If that individual, hypothetically, to make this just easy kind of view, if we did a 2% raise every year, in year 2, that employee with the City of New London would be at $47,887, and then in year 3, $48,787, on so 2% every year until we get to about year 7 or year 8. So say in year 8, that employee was with us in 2030, 2% every year would come up to $53,809. The challenge with upgrading that schedule that you have in front of you, if we have the employees make 2% and we upgrade that schedule at 2%, the challenge is that an employee in year 8, 2030, would be making the same as a brand new employee coming in with 0 to 2 years of experience in 2030. It's the same number. 53,809, just because 2%, 2%, 2% every year. So it's not really fair that an employee who's been with us for 8 years would be making the same as a brand new employee in 2030 at the same wage. So in theory, the annual raise for the employees can't be the same as we change that step grade chart. And in fact, another problem with that is, say for example, that employee in year 8 is making 53,809. The step and grade chart is designed to help us give us some focus on how we give a wage offer to someone who has prior years of experience. So if you remember when we created this, the grade 10, each step represents 2 years of experience. So if I had an employee in 2030, apply for the city of New London, has about 7 or 8 years of experience, according to this graph, we would be offering them about $57,000. Looking at the same 8 years of an experience of employee with us, it would be better off for that employee to quit and then come back as a new hire at a higher wage. So that's the problem with keeping our step and grade chart at the same increase as the annual employee. So if we would change this hypothetically to 1%, change that. There. Oops. 1%. The numbers do go down. So like, for example, that employee who is making 2% a year every year up to year 8 in 2030 would be at 53,000. The new employee starting brand new would be at 50,000, but we're still at that kind of a new employee who has 8 years of experience from another company and coming in, they'll still be making more than the other employee. The bigger reason because this doesn't really work properly is because these steps are designed across at 2.5%. You guys remember that when we created this. So we can't even go in half. So that's why in your chart that we gave you, the municipal employees last year were given a 4% increase just because of cost of living and inflation and such. So right now we're showing try to keep this under a point where it's not depression, but still increasing the step grade chart. We're showing you a value of 1.5% higher than 2020. A lot of stuff. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? I still want to upgrade that step grade chart because that's what we go to. That's our go-to when we make new offers for employees. So we got to have something to help us guide what our offers are for new employees.
Yeah, and I might be wrong, but I thought when we discussed this, we were gonna change step 1 to their new number. So change that 46 to 47, that one. And we're gonna work off of that going forward. Every year you get a raise, your first step number should change, and then you add 2.5%. That'll give you. I had thought that's how we were doing it.
So that would be the theory of, if we gave everybody a 4% increase, right?
Yep.
So that would have been the 4% increase, so that this employee in year 1, 4%, this year they're making this.
Yep.
And if we change this step grade chart to 4%, we have the same problem.
No, change your starting number though.
This
So,
number
yeah, for year 2.
would be 48. So in 2024, this would be the line across in grade 10.
Which is more than.
If these percentages are the same, I see you're saying that the employee would be here.
The purpose of the steps was to give them incentive to stay. Right?
What's that?
The purpose of the steps is to give them incentive to stay and to pay for their experience.
Purpose of the steps is to kind of give us an area where they fall in based on the years of experience. So if an employee has 7 years of experience, we plug them in at this level. Or if it was a brand new employee in 2023, we plug them into this number.
So now using, if you did the form for like there, you start at 48.
Right here. So if 2024,
Yep. After 6 years, they're at 66, right? Oh, after 8 years, they're at 66.
Right, and the person who's been.
6 years. Employee would get 4% every year. This indicates, year 1 to year 2, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%. And I can change these numbers to, represent whatever you want. The step and grade is pretty much just to plug the employee in. After that, the council determines the annual raises, whatever the employees get. But we still got to have the step and grade chart in effect for any new incoming employees. Or if, say, we have a street operator that wants to go to wastewater treatment plant, we got to have the step and grade chart set up for that.
Is there something that we would have to come to council every year, or is it just 1.5% every year going forward?
We would have to look at this on a yearly basis. So say next year, this past year it was 4% because of inflation. Say next year it goes back down to 2%. The council is going to have to determine, should this be at 0.5% to make sense? It's got to be
Actually be a
evaluated.
negative 0.5%. Yep, a decrease. Because it's the bottom step chart is moving along at 2.5%. So the problem is if you add 4% to 2.5, you're actually giving somebody 6%, 7%, and then you're only giving the people that's actually working for you, so not working. Hypotheticals versus actual employees, you're giving them 6 and them 2 or 4. So that's why you're seeing it spread like this on the bottom. So when Chad and I sat down, I said, well, then what you really have to do then is anything above 2.5 is the difference to make the chart match what's happening actually for those employed. Otherwise, you're going to see the people are hired at this escalated dollar amount compared to those that are already employed for the city. And like we said, at some point, if wages do start to level off, there may be a point where it stays exactly the same for a while.
Yeah. I mean, next year, maybe this is not touching it 0% just because of what the employees make for next year. But yeah, we have to evaluate this on a yearly basis based on what the employees are doing.
And the easiest way to do that is to do exactly what Chad did, is put employee on the first line, do an adjustment, and make sure that when you're bringing somebody in at those years, that it's not above somebody who's already working for you. You don't want to cause compression issues, because then you're going to want, everyone's going to, that's currently working for you, is going to want to see that diminished. So you're just causing problems within the system.
And that's why we considered it a live chart too, because it's something that we evaluate every year.
Mm-hmm. And that is something you did definitely talk about, is looking at this every year and just making some sense out of it. Can't really do it more than a year because inflation changes on a yearly basis. It just makes more sense to say, yeah, that makes sense this year, and then we'll take a look at it next year and see where things are at.
In other words, what you're saying is, if you got a guy that's got 10 years, he's already employed, okay? And now you're hiring a guy, say he's got 5 years experience, he starts it at a different step, higher than a new hire? Or is he starting
No.
at the new hire step for the lower wage?
So if, and I didn't go down past 2030, so I'll just back up 2 years. Your example with year 8. So if an employee with the city of New London currently would work for 8 years, that's at 53,809, where if it was 2% per year. If in 2030, we hire a new employee who has 12 years of prior experience,
Yeah,
that person would be at step 6 in 2030. So yes, an employee coming from somewhere else who has 12 years of experience hypothetically would be making more.
then
Someone who
why
has
would
8
you
years.
start a new hire higher than the guy that's been with the city? Because he's leaving his job for some reason, whether he's got the experience or not.
Mhm.
Because he might not be making as much as the new hire, as a starting wage. So you're gonna jump him up $15,000 right away?
Oh, that's why
That's
we,
not right to the,
no, this is why we're working on this right now, so that doesn't happen. We have to look at this every
But to
year.
his point, I mean, an employee who has 15 years of experience, they should be making more than someone who's been here for 5 years with the city.
yeah, but you gotta look at why is he leaving his other job? He's coming here to make more money than what he was making to start with.
Yeah, if he's got 15 years of experience at his prior job, not necessarily he's making more or less, we don't know. You know what I mean? If we start everyone at step 1, even if you have 15 years of experience, someone who has 15 years of experience out in the field is not going to be attractive to come in London if we're starting everyone at step 1.
But
We'd have to boost
the
them up.
reason they're coming here is because they don't make as much money. That's the way I look at it, at the job they're at right now.
Mhm.
Because if you can make more money from a municipality than what you're making at your job you got now, you're gonna come here at the low starting wage.
Which would be the same reason why the person that's making less that's been here for as long is gonna look elsewhere to make more money because somebody new coming in is making more than them, correct?
Right,
I just.
that's why you don't
We
pull
don't
employees.
just, we don't post a job and then hire them at the experience they have, right? This is just a starting point,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's not like if we have a street job open, a guy from Appleton, got 25 years experience, they're not gonna bump him all the way up to just automatically offer him at step 12 already.
It also depends on what they're making. We got to evaluate that by far.
I mean,
But
that's-
again, if our, and if this is the way you guys want to go with it, if our theory is that we're starting everyone at step 1, even if you have 15, 20 years of experience at your previous job, I don't think we're going to be in the market for grabbing people that have that experience.
No, you're not, but we also don't need to put them all the way at step 10 if they've been 20 years. Cause yeah, you're correct. You hire somebody outside and they're gonna make more than somebody that's already working. That is not.
And the evaluation process is a true evaluation. If the employee comes in and has partial experience, say we've got 10 criteria for that job, for a street operator, but that person only has, experience in 5 of those criteria, they're not a full experience, full years of service. We bump them down based on if they had the exact same experience for all the different criteria we're looking for, that would be something that they would be eligible for full years of experience. But if someone's coming in as a street operator and they've never plowed snow, they've worked on equipment, they've been an operator for certain things, but never plowed snow, and say they have 10 years of experience doing that, we're probably not going to give them 10 years because they're missing some of that criteria. So we would bump them down based on what their level of experience is coming.
Would you have a probation period
We always do.
right before you would bump them up? Do we start them lower and then after 6 months or something, then they bump up to the next grade?
We don't have that in effect right now. Wastewater treatment plant operators, if they get their certifications, they can start without that, then we bump them up. If someone, to your point, if someone doesn't have a CDL and we like them, and once they get their CDL, we can put in their contract negotiator, or their offer letter that we will start them at a lower point, and once they get their CDL, then they're at whatever their normal wage would be. In that point, yes, if they're not fully certified in the job.
I guess I'm really surprised that there isn't a formula or algorithm that we can just put in place. I'm sure talking to other municipalities that they struggle with the same issues as we do. That we don't have to come and get, so complicated with this. I just feel like there should be okay, you get 4%, they get 1.5%. Okay, next year 3%, they're getting 0.5%, whatever. I'm sure there's got to be some kind of.
And I'll tell you what other communities,
Yeah,
Yeah, we
You're-
we went through that.
you're not gonna wanna hear it.
here's what other communities do. They'll do say the 2%, whatever. So the employee will get a cost of living adjustment. The step grade will get a cost of living adjustment, but the employees will also get a wage increase. That's what keeps them higher. So they're getting not only the cost of living increase, but also a wage increase. We can't afford it.
Right, so,
Right.
some communities, and I'm not sure how many, I couldn't tell you that and being honest. But, they'll do this adjustment to the bottom scale based on inflation. And that is not even what the committee votes on. They put it in place and inflation is your starting base for every employee, and then there's a wage increase. So they say that inflation doesn't give you, the inflationary factor doesn't give you a raise. So they'll do the inflation and then they'll do the raise. A lot of school districts run under that premise, actually.
I worked in a place where they had a cost of living, COLA pay. And how they figured it out, no one ever knew. It didn't go by what you would see in the national
That
average.
too.
So how they figured it out, I don't know. And that's the problem with cost of living. You know, whose chart it used, I don't know.
Right, so
So
where
I
that
assume all we
inflation,
have to do on this bottom chart is make it so that them two steps are equal.
Well, think of this as the employee up here.
Yep, and we did 4%. You have it at 2 right now.
Yep.
So on year 8,
If we did 4%, which we're not saying that by any means.
I don't think you can predict. I think we're trying to project it out too far. Because you don't know what the raise is gonna be in 25, 26.
And that's a challenge because this is not going to be 2% every year.
So you just have to make sure that, I mean, you can only do year 1. On each job classification, that year 1 is in the right spot, or year 2.
So to your point, yep. You look at a new employee that was hired last year. We gave them 4% this year. If we adjust this at 1.5 or 2%, to your point, look at what the grade schedule is for next year or this year coming up. The employee that's been here in his second year compared to a new employee coming in. Yes, that works.
That's as far as you can look. Everything else is gonna be a guess, because you have no idea what the raises are for the rest of that time.
I'd be willing to make a motion to accept the compensation scale adjustment.
What adjustment?
As presented at 1.5%.
As presented at 1.5%.
Do I have a second?
At 1.5, that was just for new hires.
Correct. New hires, or if there's a situation where someone is promoted into a new position, like I took the example of if someone from the street crew wanted to work in the wastewater treatment plant. We've got the wastewater treatment plant scheduled down here, then we'd have to look at, what where they fall into, that scale. And we've had situations where people are promoted or move into different positions. Like, for example, we've had someone who was in the building department become our new, aquatic supervisor. So we gotta kind of have something in place for where that person would move into.
I don't know if the rest are like me, I'm confused with what we're doing right now. I really am, I am lost.
Okay.
What are we voting on?
So you see the 2023 schedule that's on your papers.
Okay, got it.
The 2024 schedule on the second page. Every one of those numbers is a 1.5% increase.
We're voting to keep the steps at 1.5% is what you're saying.
So 2023, let's look at step 10. Step 10, 2023 is 46,844. Step 10 in the 2024 schedule is a 1.5% increase. So a new employee with 0 to 1 or 2 years of experience coming in would probably be offered that 47,547.
What are we paying our? What's the current employee would get?
Employee last year would be at, if they started with 0 to 2 years of experience, they started at the 46.8. With the 4% that we offered, or that we gave that employee should be at 48,718. I'll change this one. This is the schedule right now that you see in front of you. A 1.5% increase.
Okay, that makes sense now. Now I can make sense of it.
So the employee started at 46,844 with a 4% increase. That newer employee is now in his second year at 48. If we hire a new employee at step 1,
yeah,
they're gonna be at 47,547.
And we're gonna evaluate this every year, or every 2 years, every year.
Evaluate this
Every year.
based on whatever, and it's kind of based on whatever the employee
Going
wages is gonna
straight
be.
to it, yeah. Okay.
You're not gonna base it on the years of experience they got coming in as a new hire, right? They're coming in at, if a guy's got 5 years' experience, he's not gonna go up 4 steps. He starts at the base where the new hire starts.
No.
Because they're coming here for a reason, because they don't make enough where they're working to start with. That's why they're coming. Because if somebody's already making, say, $56,000 a year, they're not gonna come to New London for just to stay at the same pay. They're moving to better themselves. They're not moving to just stay where they're at.
The question with that is, does the employee have the exact same experience at their previous job to evaluate? And if they do, if they've got 10 years of experience and they're making, that 52,000-ish, we're never gonna have them come here if we're gonna offer them at step 1.
If they're making
I
that,
just want to make a point of order. is
if
that
they're
we
making
have
that-
A motion on the floor and it hasn't been
Sir,
seconded.
you can't really just cut him off.
Usually we have a second, then we have discussion. I'm just saying.
Floor person. Sir, floor.
Still waiting for a second.
you don't have a second, it dies.
Not good.
Correct.
Yep.
Chairperson?
All right, moving on. Monthly financial reports, Judy.
All right, so the financial reports we're in the first month, so we are looking at January of 2024. So all of the reports have been updated to include the new 2024 budget. So the expenditures to start with, go down to this one, because this one has the most detail on it. And being January, there's really nothing out of the ordinary as of yet. Looking at months, we would be at about 8.33%. So I just took a look at anything over that. As we've talked about, insurance is all paid in January. That is why that percentage is so large. The fire department, because we pay fringes for them, that comes out also. It's 2 insurance policies for the fire department that comes out at the beginning of the year. Ambulance is quarterly, so you see 25%. Social services, we pay our weights and measures to the county upfront. So that's just a little bit higher. You can see we're hitting the ground running on our maintenance, which is something I'll take a look at and see where we're at there. And then community development, those are dues. So we pay those all in January also. So I don't see anything out of the ordinary with expenditures at this time. Anyone have any questions on any of those? And we'll move into the revenue side. And again, we are in January, so things are just chugging along. The small dollar amounts at this point. Nothing in our January revenue that stands out to me at this time. If anyone has any questions on any of the revenues, you can take questions. Otherwise, we are only 1 month in, and it looks to me as if it's normal as compared to other years. Right, then we have our assigned and unassigned fund balance, and again, this has been updated to include all of the new numbers for 2024. We have capital projects reserve. It looks large, but we also have a $1.1 million bonding that we have not used for our downtown project in there. Here's a list of all the projects that we're looking at completing in the future. Our cable TV fund has been updated. We expensed actually less than we took in, so there was an increase in that designated fund. Debt service remained the same. Boat launch, I updated to include that overflow parking and pier. That's what it would look like in this account if the grant that is applied for is received. And this is what we talked about last month. And in our trails account, we added the ATC dollars to that. Our downtown facade economic development has 158,000, nothing spent as of January. Downtown revitalization, looking at possibly doing something with that with our downtown project. Added in our dollars for the retirement reserve. Health insurance, we utilized 75, we added 25, so we're back to 25,000 within that account. We have some dollars set aside for technology, our weather sirens. We are just keeping those dollars in there. Once the chief decides what he's going to do with those, he'd like to offer some kind of free program for those people who need it. His clock camera grant that he received. A new one in here is the Robert Pulaski estate did donate some funds to the police department. Those funds actually were given to me just recently. I did add them in here already. I do not want them to get forgotten. So I added those dollars as part of the schedule also. We have the revaluation dollars set aside. And then Cross to Park, all of the rest on this list are for a specific purpose and not in particular for us to be able to spend. And then we go to the wheel tax, and this one I need to update. When I took a look at it today, it was like, yeah, when we take a look at wheel tax, you'll see what updates I'll make to the schedule for next month, because I have them on that one. So as far as unassigned fund balance, we were at estimated 3.2 at the end of this year. I think that's going to be a little larger than that. Our revenue and expenditures are balanced for 2024, that being almost 8.2 million. And then our estimated unassigned fund balance for 24 back at 3.2. But again, I anticipate that to be a little larger than that after our audit is completed at the end of March. We're still in really good shape when we are at over our shared revenue dollar amount that we receive, even with the increase. And then our policy actually is to maintain 25% of our expenditures, so that's a little over 2,500,000.
And that one, that Bob Pilasky thing, that gets split, right?
I am not, I am only the keeper of the money. How it gets spent is entirely up to the police commission.
I mean, that's just what we were told.
I do not
Okay.
know. All right, then wheel tax analysis, we anticipate 130,000. Our expenditures is what I was talking about, that I need to update this one, that we do anticipate to spend 170. Again, 61,000 on that grant that we received for North Street, 59,000 on the Wolf River development, and then some engineering on House and Alcon Road. So I updated that schedule, and again, I need to mimic that on that other schedule. I'll do that for next month, make those updates. And then the tax rate comparison. Mayor Mark had asked me actually about 2, maybe 3 months ago to do this for him. And kind of stuck it on the back burner. I apologize. I did send him an email and say, yes, I am getting to that. So here it is. And what this does is at the top compares municipalities, communities that surround us. Usually people are most interested in that. And then I picked a couple other ones that sometimes are chosen for other purposes, like comparing payrolls and things of that nature. So this was a list that I actually used last time that I did the tax rate comparison. So I used exactly the same communities, if you wonder why I picked them. On the far left is the population of each community, the municipality, we're split in Wapak and Outagamie County. As you can see, we're the only ones. So I don't do things once, I do them twice. So then we have our city local tax rate. One of the things that Chad and I struggled with was how to make you visualize what I know and how this works. Like, don't just look at the local tax and say, wow, we're way higher than our neighbors are. There's a lot of things that go into how a tax bill is calculated. And that is why I have the calculation going from 150,000, and then I show you the assessed ratio. The ratio makes a big difference in what you're actual taxed on your home. So the city of New London is currently at about 0.75%. So you're actually paying tax on less than the value of your home within the city until we do a reval. And that's why we do revals, because the state says we don't want you paying at 0.75. We want you as close to 100% as possible. And we know that that's going to be coming pretty soon. So we'll be taking care of that. So even though you see that the city of New London is at 10.25%, you can see way over on the right-hand side, I did do the gross, and then I'm like, well, I don't feel like that's really showing what we want to show. So then I did the city local. So you can see that the city is at our tax. So there's a lot of other taxes on our tax bill. We got the county, the Fox Valley Technical College, and the school districts. So locally, the tax in the city of New London is $1,159, and then you go to Clintonville, they're at 1,253. And these are all based on the values, their assessed value ratio. So you take the value of the home, divide it by 1,000, multiply it by the assessed value ratio, and then it gives you how much in dollars and cents you owe. We're very comparable. The city of Wapaka there is still a little bit higher than us. City of Shawano is at 1,300, and then Village of Hortonville, as we know, way less services, and they are a village at 861. So that's that comparison. I hope it helps you. If anyone has any questions about what everyone around us looks like, that you can answer those questions. If there's anything else that you'd like me to take a look at when it comes to those ratios or I have gross and I have net. And then I did the net tax. I didn't do the gross tax because everybody gets a benefit of net tax when it comes to paying your tax bill. So I did the net tax, and then, like I said, I calculated city local because it really wasn't showing you what we'd like to have showed you. And that's that we're definitely competitive, even though it looks like we're much higher in at 10.25.
Thank you, Judy.
You're very welcome.
Looks very nice.
And to drive that point home, you can't just compare the tax rate. London at 12 or 10.25, Wapaka at 5, they're 7.56, but they just did their reval like Judy was talking about. Actually, with them, with a lower tax rate, has a slightly higher tax bill. Is the ratio. So when people go out and say, "Hey, we got a higher or lower tax rate than Wapaka," nope. The ratio is what makes that difference.
Good. Any other questions? And then, that is it for the financial reports. And I'm off to, my monthly report. As you know, we just met in February, so even though it looks small. Most of my lion's share of my time right now is spent on getting myself ready for an audit. So the auditor's gonna coming in March 28th. You'll hear me like I'm a broken record, but it does take a lot of our time getting our stuff in order and our schedules ready so that when they come in, it takes them less time. And that's what we want to do. We want to do as much of that work in-house as we can so that we're not spending our money having an auditor at $100 an hour putting those schedules together. So it does take some time internally for us to get that information pulled together and in a manner of which they want it, because we report in one way and they want to see it in another. So, let's see what else. Tax collection came to an end, so I had to prepare all that, that final closing information and get those checks mailed out to each of the jurisdictions. I have to do that. It might sound like a broken record also because I told you that in January, because I do that twice, once in January and once in February. We did have CIDMIC here and we went through our work plan. That is our insurance company, Cities and Villages Mutual Insurance Company. And they come here and they go through our policy development and things of that nature. And we go through what can we get done this year as far as mandatory training, harassment training, things of that nature, and then policy. We have policies that should be looked at and updated on, every 3 years, every 4 years. So just trying to make some forward movement in those kinds of things within our office also. So it's nice to have somebody at the forefront of that, working with us to move forward on our human resources area also. We had a meeting on NeoGov. We are looking at a payroll processing system to hopefully bring some efficiencies within that area. So we are doing, and Stephanie's doing a lot of research on companies that are out there, because there's just not a ton when it comes to government. So she's doing a great job going out and trying to find what companies are available to us, and then scheduling all the meetings for all of us to get together and take a look at those. And then, like I said, audit takes up a lion's share of a lot of our time, not just myself, but April also, and Stephanie, and Nicole too, because they take a look at just about everything when they come in to the office, including meeting minutes and things of that nature. So also filing away 2022 now that we're in 2024, my focus will become 22, 24, and 25. So I kind of put to bed 2022. Not that I never look at it again, but it's time to shift gears and move forward into 2025 and what that looks like. And then again, we updated all our financial programs to include the 2024 budget. So computers don't know what that looks like. We have to tell them what that looks like. So it does take some time for us to get in there and update all the particular account numbers, all the information that I give to you. Each of those numbers are punched into the system. And then they have to be looked at and made sure that that's actually what we passed within our ordinances so that everything ties out. So when the auditors come, they're not like, that number doesn't match that number, so everything has to flow through the system. And that's it.
Thank you, Judy.
You're
Um,
welcome.
Let's make a statement before the next meeting. I need everybody to look at these two scales for the compensation adjustment, because it will be back on the agenda next month. If you have any questions, shoot them to Chad. We have to do something or we're gonna be in the same boat we were in last year. When everybody's complaining about all these raises and something needs to be done. Yeah, we'll just make sure you know what's gonna be back on next month, for sure.
Do you have any questions? You want to sit down? It's a lot. I'm not,
I think too much was thrown at us at once to try to figure out in our heads what we were supposed to be doing.
that's a-okay.
I was just starting to get there and then the conversation got cut off, so a month from now, I'll probably have to relearn everything, but
Yeah, I agree.
it's a shame that we cut everything off like that, but I'll try to do my homework and re-understand it, but I was getting there, I was getting.
Like I said, come on in. We can sit down and have that chat individually. No problem.
I was confused at first. I had no idea what we were doing. But, all right, look for a motion to adjourn.
I don't know, there's questions and answers on here. I was just wondering, I know a lot of the agendas have public comment and we have some public here today. Do we want to include public comment or is it just questions and answers with committee?
We just knew that there was a meeting after this meeting.
Okay.
So we know that their purpose is, I'm pretty sure their purpose is the next meeting. And not this. You're absolutely correct. If there are people in our audience, we should be asking. But thank you Mr. Robbins, for asking.
I do have a question though about, there was a guy coming around, it's not really a campaigner, but he signs people up and I think they're lobbyists, but he's handing out literature about personal property tax and stuff. Where is Wisconsin at with that? I mean, did they repeal personal property taxes?
They have, John. Personal, this was the last year of personal property tax. So they are backfilling it, state of Wisconsin, not unlike a number of other taxes that we receive now through the state of Wisconsin. So you will not receive a personal property tax anymore, but I can tell you that Adam will be in contact with you about your particular situation and what that will look like.
So, yeah, how are municipalities gonna make that up?
The state is actually paying us. So whatever we collected this current year, 23 payable 2024, they will pay us until they say they won't pay us.
Right, but still,
We have a
eventually,
lot of taxes like that.
it's gonna be a big landmine eventually down the road for municipalities.
I have a number of them, John, that we went through this. It's, when it comes to the state of Wisconsin, see, personal property aid, exempt computer aid, those are all backfilled and used to be billed out to real estate and personal property tax owners and now are backfilled by the state of Wisconsin. And, you know, I guess it's, when they look at their budget too, to put this in a good perspective, they're saying that they are, you know, their dollars are there, that they're collecting, you know, quite a bit in sales tax and other things. So I think what they're trying to do is make businesses go and try to help them in any capacity that they can. And this was just another way for them to backfill those dollars that businesses are paying and help them along the way so that they can strive.
I've never had a problem with it personally, so I guess it's just, you can't sweep something under a rug and expect it. It's gonna come out of somewhere.
Yeah,
Come out of
cable
somebody's
franchise fees is another one. So they pay a quarter of the cable transfer fees to us. franchise fees,
Franchise.
I'm sorry. Jeez, paying for everywhere, and now they're not, sleep is coming through. So,
To me, it's just
yeah.
a funny shell game, and I'd like to see all of those taxes that they supposedly got rid of for us, but really they didn't. They just took it out of a different pot of
Mhm.
money.
Mhm.
That'd be a good kind of like the
Presentation?
tax rate comparison presentation there. So thank you for doing that.
No problem.
Thanks for answering. Thanks for bringing up questions, answers. Tim, I was waiting for that.
Thank you. All for motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
made by Tim, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.